Yeah, I think that we have to be candid about our circumstances. And our circumstances in cities are circumstances that are affected by deteriorating physical conditions, by an absence of meaning, and by violence. And I think we have to face up to those facts. And we have to do so in a hopeful way. I call it the politics of conversion. It's different than the politics of dependency, and is different from the politics of dependency as it is different from the politics of greed. And what it means is recognizing that each of us have an obligation to another human being because that person is a human being. And in policy terms, what it means is we're going to have to get the violence to stop. We're going to have to build families, strong families. We're going to have to get an economy moving that is directed in a targeted way at core areas of unemployment and in a big way at the whole economy and pulls everybody to the higher economic ground.
Ben, do you think this shift away from little themes, welfare queen, Willie Horton, up to themes like reindustrialize and rebuild families and reduce crime could in fact heal and build the party?
Sure, I am for big themes and to express big themes, as anyone running for president knows, and there are two people on this panel who should have, could have, and I think should have done that. You express those themes.
Thanks for your support.
That's okay. No, I didn't say I'd vote for it. I didn't say I'd vote for it. I said as I've written, that you ought to have run, but you express those themes, and I'm surprised you sort of criticized me for it. You express those themes symbolically. That's how nobody is interested in a 122-point position paper. Talking about family and the internal causes of the problem in the black community and in the urban community is exactly the way to go. Bill Bradley's speech on the Senate floor was a heroic and courageous speech because it went beyond the democratic liberal orthodoxy, which says look at the physical infrastructure, which he does, and that's part of the problem. And it says the root of this problem, as I read your speech, Senator, the root of this problem is internal, and the black community has to understand that and has to pay some attention to some of the people that they are now trashing as black conservatives and as Uncle Tom.
That's not what he said. And that's really off the point. I think what's clear here is that there is a whole need for an ethical revival, an economic revival, a sense of hope as opposed to a sense of fear and division.
I think Bill Clinton is addressing some of these issues in his current rhetoric. I find it very impressive that he has managed to win the votes of both whites and blacks. I think he's doing this by talking honestly. He's addressing issues like crime, like the breakdown of the family, and I don't think he's engaging in demagoguery. It's something that both blacks and whites are concerned about. He's not making it a race-based image, and I think the fact that he is one of the first Democrats to do this in a number of years explains one of the reasons that the Democrats haven't been successful in recent elections. They haven't talked about these issues honestly.
That's laudable, but have we not heard too little about urban policy and neglected children and forsaken farmers, a whole body of people who are kind of left out of the spectrum, Bill?
Well, I don't think that you can reduce this to either just welfare or only out-of-wedlock birth. I mean, you've got to talk candidly about both of those issues. But you also have to put it in a context where unemployment in areas are at levels of the Great Depression, where people don't have jobs.
Unemployment levels are at the level of the Great Depression.
In some areas of urban America, unemployment levels are at levels of the Great Depression.
Not nationally.
But the point is, you have to deal with all of this. You can't simply deal with a small. Therefore, you know, grant points where points should be granted in terms of problems in family structure or problems in welfare, but don't deny problems in the economy.
But Senator, look, the Democrats have always dealt with that set of issues, with the economic issues, and properly so. What's new and interesting and vital, and I hope it catches on, is also paying attention to these issues of values, which are destroying some of these minority communities, as everybody on this panel knows. You know it.
No one can, in a measure, attempt to be apologetic about a collapse in values, what I call the Canaan calamity, where people got to the promised land and somehow lost their sense of ethics, their sense of self-respect, their sense of dignity. And yet, having said that, that is no substitute for an economy. And with 10 million people unemployed and 35 million in poverty, it's weighing heavily upon family structures in a very objective sense.
Let me-
We'll be right back. We got to reach on some agreement on how some Democrats and some Republicans can work together. What can we do to get the disaffected vote for Democrats for a change? Stay with us. Let's see if we can reach some common ground. Ben, this time with 10 million Americans unemployed, 20 million jobless, 35 million in poverty, farms auctioned and plants closing. Do you think Democrats can get some of the disaffected voters to vote Democrat for a change?
I think they can. I don't buy most of your statistics as you might imagine, but I think the Democrats can get a lot of disaffected voters back if they are prepared to acknowledge these central issues. Matt Reese brought up the issue of preference and proportionalism.
You don't accept the notion that millions unemployed?
No, I accept that there are millions of unemployed,
Farms are being auctioned off?
and that's what happens in a recession. People get unemployed, and then the economy goes the other way, and it gets better, and that we've been moving from the farms for 200 years in this country. But getting back to the question, yes, you can get the disaffected Democrats back if you acknowledge all the real issues, including the one that Matt Reese brought up of preferentialism and proportionalism. Senator Bradley says this, that we're all in this together, and he's absolutely right. Bill Clinton saying that, but that means you got to go back to a merit standard and treat everybody the same. And then we'll all go ahead.
Can Democrats get the disaffected voter for a change? There's obviously an explosion of disaffected voters. That's why you hear Ross Perot, for example.
Bill Clinton can run on race-neutral images like talking tough on crime, advocating school choice, and emphasizing workfare over welfare. These are issues that have broad appeal, black and white, and if he runs on those issues, he can be very successful.
Well, in the 8 southern states, he got 1 million fewer voters in 1992 than we got in 1988.
But that's in a primary, not in a general.
Okay.
I think the key is focusing on the real future. By the year 2000, only 57% of the people entering the workforce are going to be native-born whites. That means that the future of the children of white Americans are going to be determined in large part by the talents of non-white Americans. That means there's got to be a greater sense of urgency about dealing with the problems in all of our communities. Otherwise, we will not all advance. It can no longer be a time where you can give excuses, offer scapegoats. It's a time for action, and the time is now.
So we're inescapably bound. We'll be right back with some final arguments. Last words on the Democrats' dilemma. Stay with us.
With Jesse Jackson, send $4 to Journal Graphics Incorporated, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. Or call 303-831-9000.
Senator Bill Bradley, eve of the election 4 years from now, 1996, will we still be sitting here discussing abandoned urban policy and black-white divide?
If we are, I believe we'll be losing the opportunity we have to lead the world as a pluralistic democracy whose growing economy takes everybody to the higher ground, and that would be a shame.
Mr. Wattenberg?
I agree with that. We will be talking about it, but these are not intractable problems. What we have neglected to talk about in this program is, in many ways, an astonishing black success story. There are blacks by the millions moving into the suburbs, moving up the occupational scale. This is part of a serious problem. I don't mean to underestimate it, but this is a successful country, and it's going to work.
4 years from now, the politics of reconciliation or push-off politics, black-white?
I certainly think it's going to be an issue in years to come. I hope that Bill Clinton can continue with his positive rhetoric and that we can get some real discussion of the issues in the November election.
Thank you, Matthew Reese and Ben Wattenberg and Bill Bradley. From anyone who would dare be president and lead us, we deserve great vision, great themes. A vision that will lift us above our fears of race, and sex, and class, and religion. We need ideas that match the greatness of our mountains and our seas. We need themes that will be bridges to connect us, not walls to divide us. As Americans, we are all in the same boat in turbulent waters. With the loss of jobs and a future that is not secure, we're subject to pain and panic. Leaders of substance with moral authority will take us from pain to partnership. Thanks for hearing both sides. I'm Jesse Jackson.